All right, everyone, and we're down already with the first topic of the Introduction to Pragmatics under ELS Cog 1. So, at this topic, we're going to deal with the following topics. First, we're going to deal with understanding the two terms and how they are distinctive with each other, the pragmatics versus semantics. And then the second one is about the speech acts, and then the third one is the categories of speech acts. So, let's proceed. So let us understand first that when we try to deal with our topic for today, this is about concepts and thoughts that will be judged based on effectively how they are utilized for its purpose. So basically, it is contextualized based on its usefulness and practical situation. So let's understand first what do you mean by pragmatics. Pragmatics, this is basically a branch of linguistics that studies more of the context of influences based on the interpreted meaning out of the words, and then identifying the meaning of it based on the implication of speaker, based on how it was inferred, and going beyond the literal meanings of words, meaning it should be contextualized so that you will understand the meaning of it, meaning you will see the utterances based on application. Now, what's the focus on pragmatics? The focus of pragmatics, basically, it examines the way how it was utilized in terms of its action, and therefore identifying the meaning of it based on the situational factors or situational actions of the speakers, based on its behavior in terms of its social rules, and also the speaker's intention and the assumption of the listeners, basically connected with the relationship of the character or the speaker, into its environment, into its relationship with the speaker, or in terms of the manner of how uh, he tries to utilize the words in speaking. Now, what's the difference of pragmatics versus semantics? When we talk about pragmatics, again, as I have told you, this is concerning about the actual use of language based on real life situation. On the other hand, when we talk about semantics, this deals with the conventional meaning of words and sentences, meaning it can either be literally, interpreted based on the function of the word itself, and or it can be utilized based on figurative meanings in terms of how the words are related with the other words. So, in short, when you try to talk about pragmatics, this is more of utilizing it. I mean, practically and in terms of real life conversation. On the other hand, when we talk about semantics, this is just more of the word itself, the figurative meaning or the literal meaning of it. The to call that the denotative or connotative meaning of the word. Now, when we talk about contextual meaning, and this is the pragmatics. Contextual meaning, this is about the how you try to identify the meaning of it, identifying the meaning of the words, the uttered words by the characters based on how it was utilized in terms of conversation. Because the conversation affects the interpretation of the word meaning. Because it is influenced by physical setting, the social relationship, the cultural background, or the previous discourse or the previous conversation that was done before, having at the moment, at the, at present conversation. So what do you mean by physical setting? Physical setting is where do you think the conversation happens? So where do you think the conversation was seen or literally seen? So if the conversation happened at the market, the conversation happened at school, the conversation happened at the park, the conversations happened at the office, definitely it varies in terms of its meaning because the place itself affects the meaning of the conversation. So the second one is the social relationship. When we talk about social relationship, these are the roles of the characters or the role of the speakers within the conversation that affects the interpretation of the meaning. And then the third one is about the cultural background. Cultural background is about the shared knowledge and cultural norms. What do you mean by shared knowledge and cultural norms? The influence of conversation of within the kinds of people, not only the kinds of people, but the age culture of the one talking, or the role of the person talking, because there is an implied cultural background within the characters of the one speaking. So having that kind of shared knowledge and cultural norms, you will understand where does that person coming from, what is the meaning of he wanted to imply into the conversation. And then the other one is a previous discourse. What do you mean by previous discourse? Previous conversation, meaning the conversation that is happening right now, it is related to the conversation that was done previously, meaning they are connected with each other. So that is what we mean by contextual meaning. Contextual meaning, as I have told you, this is about uh, trying to look into what is the pragmatic, I mean, the meaning of the words pragmatically present at the conversation or at the context. So that is what you mean by contextual meaning related to pragmatics. Now, what are the elements of contextual meaning in terms of pragmatics? We have the key elements. The first one is the deixis. The second one is the presupposition. And then the third one is the implicature. So what do you mean by deixis? Deixis are the words like this, that, here, and there. These are, it means that you try to look at where is the focus of the context of meaning. The second one is a presupposition. Presupposition is assumption. Assumptions that are taken for granted in communication, meaning the assumption of the speaker, of um, the receiver of the communication. So definitely the conversation goes on and on when you think that the person that you're talking to get the background knowledge of what you're talking about. So therefore, the communication within the two people, they try to converse because they are trying to talk to one context. So that is what you mean by presupposition. Assuming that the person that you're talking with has already the knowledge of what you're talking about. So that is what you mean by presupposition. And then the other one is the implicature. Implicature is about additional meaning inferred by the listener, not explicitly stated by the speaker, meaning only the one talking knows what is the meaning of that conversation, because they have implied meaning within the text, within the words that is being uttered. That is what you mean by implicature, meaning only the speakers can understand what they are trying to talk about because they have only the knowledge about what they are trying to converse. So that is what you mean by the key elements of contextual meaning of pragmatics. Now, let's move on to the next topic, which is about the speech acts. Speech acts are basically performed by utterances. So they are the core concepts of pragmatics and highlights how language is used to accomplish things beyond conveying information. There are three processes of speech acts. One, later on I'll tell you, but when we talk about speech acts, this demonstrates that communication is not just about exchanging information, but they have relationship and also have performing actions and achieving social goals that has purpose, meaning they try to communicate because there's a purpose why they are communicating. So this has a relationship with conversation. Now, these are the process of speech acts. First, we have what we call locutionary act. Second one is the illocutionary act. And then the third one is the perlocutionary act. So what do you mean by locutionary act? Locutionary act is basically the actual words that are spoken by the speakers. So the things that they are utilizing or uttered within the conversation, that is what we call by locutionary act. Now, what do you mean by illocutionary act? Illocutionary act is about the intended meaning within the word itself, meaning they are categorized with requesting. Do you think that the word is uttered to request, to promise, to apologize? Meaning those words that are uttered, what's the purpose of those words? That is what you mean by illocutionary act. Again, intended function or purpose behind the words. So you're trying to use the word because there's a purpose of utilizing it. And then the third process is about the perlocutionary act. So what do you mean by perlocutionary act? What is the effect of the uttered and then the purpose of the word being uttered? That is what you mean by perlocutionary act. Do you think that the words that are being uttered by the speaker really persuaded persuaded the people that he's talking with, or not really the intention was not seen into, or was not being the effect of the utterance. So when the electionary is requesting, of course, they are expected, or the effect should be looking into that, the effect is like requesting. So it's more of the word, the meaning, and should be also the effect should be consistent and aligned. So that is what we mean by speech acts. So now we have different five categories, or five types of speech acts. Speech acts of having different purposes. One, the representative. Second is the directives. Third is the commissive. Fourth is expressive. Fifth is declaration. Representative is about just stating or concluding. So they are just asserting facts or beliefs, or just giving an information that is representative. They are just stating their opinion, stating some certain facts or beliefs that they believe with. And then the second one is directive. What do you mean by directive? The purpose of giving the utterances is to attempt the listener to do something. They are requesting, they are demanding. In short, they are giving directions to the co-speaker that they are trying to talk with, or having conversation. The next one is commissive. Commissive is about committing the speaker to a future action, meaning the person is promising, the person is offering, the person is committing a certain action in the future action. So you'll see that in the utterances. What is the purpose of the utterance? And then the fourth one is expressive, meaning the utterance or the conversation that she's uh, utilizing, or she's conversing with with the other person, is she's expressing the emotion of him, by apologizing, congratulating, any expression that she wanted to put into the utterances. And then, of course, the last type of the speech act is the declaration. Declaration is about bringing about a change in the external situation through an utterance. Declaration meaning generalizing or declaring to a statement that he feels about, and he want to voice that to the whole world or to the audience. So as I have told you, when we talk about pragmatics, in as we end the discussion, when we talk about pragmatics, this explores how people use language in context. And you try to identify the implied meanings based on the different utterances, based on the different focus, based on the different purposes, and therefore you get a different interpretation. So from that interpretation, this deals with the actions being performed by your co-conversant, or the one that you're speaking with, or the one that you're having a conversation. Because when you try to understand pragmatics, this involves the recognizing not only the word, not only the person, not only also the place that they are conversing, but everything, because this has a dynamic nature of meaning the various functions of language serves as communication, and serves as for you to understand what they mean by the utterances being uttered by the people conversing with. So unlike in semantics, you're focusing on the word itself, meaning literal words that are being read, or literal words that being seen in the text. Here, when we talk about pragmatics, you need to understand also their actions. You need to understand also the tone of how it was conversed. Because when you try to look at it, you try to see the expression, the feelings, and therefore you understand what's the purpose of communicating to the one that you're talking with. So I guess that would be all about the nature of pragmatics, and we'll see and run through the other topics that has a relationship with pragmatics as we go on with the other topics. Thank you very much and have a nice day.